All right, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to our fourth installment of Doc and Caveman's NBA Draft Profiles. You are here with Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman, as always. Today, we're going to be focusing on NBA prospect Jaden Ivey, 6'4", 195-pound sophomore from Purdue. Very impressive when you look at the improvement that he made in year two at Purdue. You don't see very many jumps. Actually, we're going to talk about Keegan Murray shortly, who made a very similar jump. But Jaden Ivey had a great sophomore season for Purdue, 17.3 points per game, almost 5 rebounds, 35% from three. Caveman, what strengths do you have down for Jaden Ivey?
The biggest thing with me is he is just a freak athlete, and when we talk athletes, you can definitely make a case for him being the best athlete in this draft class. He's just very exciting to watch. Especially you just saw him just finish in the paint like nobody was there. He's excellent in transition. He makes the right play. I watched a play with Jaden Ivey where he grabbed the rebound, split two defenders, juked the defender at half court, and then down the other end there were two guys waiting in the paint, and then he blew by them and then he dunked the ball. Like, what the hell? What is he on? Like, that takes a tremendous amount of skill. That's the thing that stands out with him. He knows how to use his athleticism. He dunks on guys. He puts guys on. He's a guy that's gonna have several highlight plays on SportsCenter Top 10. He's that guy. He has that kind of ability. So that's something you're going to see from him day one. You're going to be seeing him a lot on SportsCenter.
Yeah, that's similar to Paulo. Their athletic profiles are off the charts. They're probably the top two athletes, and you can debate who it is, but it's really not worth any effort to debate that because they're both elite, and that's really the moral of the story. You mentioned some of the plays that he made in transition. I think that's really where he thrives, is because he can take a rebound or he can grab the ball, and he's just a one-man transition. He doesn't need anybody else, and he's scoring whether you like it or not. So that's one of his big strengths. Driving to the basket in general. We'll talk about his shooting in a little bit. He's got a lot of playmaking upside as well. I think that can still be worked on, but he showed flashes of it at least. So I think he's one of those guys. I don't know if there's a guy that has more offensive upside in this class. And I will throw it out there that he would, if I had the number one pick, I would take Jaden Ivey.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually think that he has the most superstar potential of anybody in this class. I think, and we'll talk about some of the comparisons later. And, at this point, there's nobody that's at the top of the board here that's going to make me happy defensively. So I might as well just go with the top offensive force or potential offensive force in this class. So I guess Chet is a good defender. I'm sorry, Chet, that I dissed you so much there. But yeah, I just think Ivy has the most superstar potential. And I've seen superstars recently where if you surround them in the right system defensively, they can be average, but as long as you're surrounding them with great defenders, they don't really make the team worse defensively. And I think that's the case of what you'd have to do with Ivy. He's athletic. If you put him in a position and you have a good system, he'd be fine defensively. He's not going to be elite. He's not going to, unless he decides he wants to be, but I'm not going into that again. But a lot of his upside does lie on the offensive side of it. If you're looking at some of his weaknesses on the offensive side of the ball, I think a lot of it lies in, we talked about him being a one-man transition, but when you slow down the game, he tends to make a lot more mistakes. and he kind of he's one of those young guys that plays wild and out of control, and he's going 100% of the time, which you can appreciate, but offensively that is. He's full force, but that leads to a lot of mistakes. That can lead to turnovers. It leads to poor passes. It leads to him missing guys that are open sometimes because I think he's so focused on trying to score. So, I think that's a hard issue to fix. And we've seen some players have a lot of success playing like that offensively, but you kind of have to take the good and the bad in this case because I don't see it being one of those things that changes. Do I see him playing more in control? Probably as he matures and plays in the league longer, but I don't think he's ever going to be a completely in control player. I think he's just the kind of guy where he's just go, go, go.
Yeah. That's kind of there's a specific name that I'm excited to throw out there when it comes to comparisons. But I mean, you hit on it. A lot of his weaknesses boil down to the half court. I mean, he shot 30, not great for a guard at 35.8%. And that was especially, it wasn't just threes. Like he shot 20% on mid ranges, and shot 29% off of the dribble, which is when it can't get much worse than that. So I guess that's good. I mean, he has nowhere to go but up in that area. You mentioned with his playmaking. I think you mentioned it. You didn't say the word specifically, but tunnel vision is really what it boils down to with him. It's almost as if he predetermines what he's going to do or where he's going to go with the ball, and he doesn't see how the defense is playing it. He just he doesn't have the ability to adapt and change what he's going to do. That's something you can work on. But that for me, is he going to be a guy that has a potential to be a number one pick? I mean, I see it. I see it as just the wow factor, and it's just exciting ability. But yeah, I just worry. I think his weaknesses are going to be a little. He's really going to have to work on his shot. Not necessarily his mechanics, but he's just going to have to work on shot selection and just not having that tunnel vision. I think that's something that I think is going to take a while for him to develop. So I don't know. I'm not calling him like he's not a project by any means, but I think at least his impact is going to be limited out of the gate, at least. Is what I'd say.
You're very much disappointing me because I feel like this is your kind of player.
I thought Jabari Smith was your type of player, and look, here we are.
What do we know? I mean, I like Jabari Smith, but I don't think he has the upside. The thing I'll say with Ivy, I will clarify that I personally, if I was building a team, I don't think I would take him first, but I do think he should be the first pick because if you're craving a superstar, a modern offensive-minded superstar, that's what Jaden Ivey is, in my opinion. So, okay, let's go to some ideal fits. What do you have for this one? The Thunder?
Man, no, but Ivey's the type of. You can. I guess you can push Giddy or Shy to three.
Probably Shy.
But not that it'd be a great fit, but I think they'd probably find a way to make it work. For me, normally I would say Orlando, but Orlando needs that superstar potential. But Orlando, they need a superstar potential, but they need it out of somebody that's not a guard. Because they got so the teams that I have down, the Knicks, I think that could be a fit if they get a little bit lucky in the lottery. I think the Knicks. I'm sorry, I don't see Julius Randle as a superstar, so I don't think they have a superstar on their team. Because Jaden Ivey can come in. The Knicks have gotten very inconsistent play from their backcourt in recent memory. Now we did see some flashes from Derrick Rose and Quickly, who is a guy who I sure hope they really give more run to next year. Uh, but a team like the Knicks, the Pacers is the other team I had down.
God dang Pacers.
I mean, God,
Their
the
team is
Pacers are
so too good to be. They might be picking in the top 5, and that's embarrassing.
I mean, the reality is that I mean they're not as. I mean they trade. It's not like they're as good anymore. I mean they traded Sabonis away. I mean they
I
got
don't
Halliburton.
know. Yeah,
They
yeah.
did get Halliburton. But a guy. And I think a lot of Ivy to the Pacers is contingent on they got to do something with Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, I don't know at this point what the deal is with him, but I think a guy like Jaden Ivey playing next to a guy like Halliburton, who I think is very underrated as a passer, I think that could be a very exciting backcourt to watch.
I'm gonna throw out one that you're not gonna love because Killian Hayes is your boy for whatever reason, but I think watching him and Cade play together would be pretty exciting. So I think that it could be a possibility. I also think that it's not a great fit, but I've kind of seen already that Houston has their eyes potentially on him. I mean, him and Jalen Green together, I think is.
But they're neither one of them are really a great playmaker.
That's why they have Kevin Porter. You have Kevin Porter as your traditional ball handler playmaker, and then you have Jalen Green and Ivy. I mean, it sounds great on paper. You could start those three with.
Great on paper, but
I don't know. You're going to be the worst defensive team to ever play basketball, but that's fine.
And I'm surprised you didn't mention that more with his weaknesses. Is just overall. I mean, he's not nearly as bad as Paulo on the defensive end. So I'm not trying to say that at all. But he really can show a little bit more effort on the defensive end.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I will say that Paulo right now is below average. I think that
3 below.
I could probably add a few more, but we don't have enough time for that. I think Ivy is teetering on almost being average. I'll say he's slightly below average. So he is just a little more inconsistent with it. Because, I mentioned that with Paulo, but there's times where there's whole games where Ivy is very good defensively. And then there's quarters here and there where he's not very good. So he's just, it's a lot more consistency with him. And, something like that probably has to do with he's giving so much effort on the offensive end that he's not saving anything defensively, which I hate that excuse, but that probably is the reality.
Can't you just use that excuse for James Harden though?
No, I hate that guy. I said I didn't like the excuse. It's, I guess, valid. I don't think it's valid, but it's at least an explanation, I guess. Whatever. I think I used all of my angry energy at Paulo already, so Ivy gets a little bit of slack here.
Okay.
So, but he is better. Yeah, like I said, I think he has the potential already in the right system to be an average defender from day one. And if you get his kind of offensive upside with average defense, I mean, that's a great combination at the end of the day. That's all that I think. You don't want them to hurt you defensively, but average is good. That's what we're going for here. But okay, let's go to comparisons. I want to hear the name that you were going to throw out there.
I mean, is it that obvious to say John Morant? Is it that obvious?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Is it that obvious? I mean, it's uncanny. We're talking player comparisons. I don't think it gets much. Now, Jai has really developed into a really solid playmaker. So I wonder if Ivy can get there. I think he can. But John Morant coming out wasn't the greatest jump, and he still isn't, if we're being honest. Yeah, still. But so I think Ivy has the potential to be a little bit better than Ja from the 3-point line. But if we're talking box office and we're talking highlight plays, we've seen John Morant put guys on posters. Well, seems like on a regular basis at this point. So I mean, just from that, their style of play is very similar. The other name, and when you say 100% effort, 100% of the time, especially on the offensive end, you know the name that comes to mind is Russell Westbrook.
Oh, God.
Now that's pretty much the only way they're similar, in my opinion. Because I don't care, Jaden Ivey will never be as bad of a 3-point shooter as Russell Westbrook. I mean, but
for his sake, hope not.
But yeah, that's when you talk about effort. I mean, that's the one thing you can say about Russell Westbrook is when it comes to effort, he's never going to short you on that part of it. But Donovan Mitchell is the other, and that's what I mean. I don't know if I would take him number one, but I mean, I have high-end comparisons for him. So
you're talking John Morant and Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell, and then some Russell Westbrook. I mean, but I think their games are kind of similar as well. I see a lot of shades of Donovan Mitchell and Ivy as well.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're talking Donovan Mitchell, you have to throw in Anthony Edwards as well. I mean, I had that as my number one comparison for Anthony Edwards when he came out, and so far that looks to be pretty solid, and so you got to throw his name in there. The other one I'll throw in there is a little bit of Victor Oladipo when he was in his prime. And I also always throw Jalen Green into that mix. Jalen Green's a little taller, but yeah, I think you throw in just all those guys with a ton of offensive ability, a lot of explosiveness in their game, and you have the potential. And that's why what I was alluding to earlier with if you put a superstar level player offensively like this in a good system, Ja Morant with the Grizzlies. They were still an elite defensive team, but it wasn't because of Ja Morant. I mean,
it certainly wasn't because of Ja Morant.
He's an average defender now, but he's so elite offensively that's how I think the Grizzlies have the blueprint on how you need to use a player like Ja Morant, like Anthony Edwards, even the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's defensive ability is a little underrated and better than all these other guys, but that's the way that you have to use these players. You can't rely on them.
Fortunately, the only sad thing with Donovan Mitchell is he's never really gotten that true help on the offensive end.
Not even a little bit.
I mean, Jordan Clarkson had Jordan Clarkson. But yeah, I mean, if he, like I said, if Ivy can be surrounded by by a team, especially that can play defense, I mean, he can be a focal point on the offensive end. He 100% can be, especially if he just improves a little bit on that 3-point, which limits some of his upside. If we talk about he's not the greatest defensively, and he's also not the greatest shooter. I think he needs to, one of those areas needs to improve. He either needs to be more consistent defensively, or his jump shot needs to improve a little bit. I think one of those improving, I think, is what's really going to unlock him to the next level.
I think that is a wonderful way to wrap it up. So that is it for Jaden Ivey. I don't even know. Oh, Keegan Murray is next up. So make sure you guys tune in for that one, and we'll see you then.
Yep.